The Life and Explorations of David Livingston, Part 6. This disaster to Shiel caused a considerable delay in Livingston's departure for the north upon the remarkable expedition which has become so celebrated. At length, however, guides were procured, and the journey was begun on November 20th, 1852. That which we further learn of the intelligent Shiel, whom misfortunes of the severest nature were unable to dishearten. It is thus related by Dr. Livingston. When we reached Motito, 40 miles off, we met Shiel on his way, and he said, "To the Queen of England," he said, "To the Queen of England. Two of his own children and their mothers, a former wife, were among the captives seized by the Boers, and being strongly imbued with the then very prevalent notion of England's justice and generosity, he thought that in consequence of the violated treaty, he had a fair case to lay before Her Majesty. He employed all his eloquence and powers of persuasion to induce me to accompany him, but I excused myself on the ground of my arrangements were already made for exploring the north. On explaining the difficulties of the way and endeavoring to dissuade him from the attempt on account of the knowledge I possessed of the governor's policy, he put the pointed question: "Will the Queen not listen to me, supposing I reach her?" And I replied, "I believe she would listen, but the difficulty is to get to her." "Well, I shall reach her," expressed his final determination. Others explained the difficulties more fully, but nothing could shake his resolution. When he reached Bloemfontein, he found the English army just returning from a battle with the Bastus, in which both parties claimed the victory, and both were glad that the second engagement was not tried. Our officers invited Shiel to dine with them, heard his story, and collected a handsome sum of money to enable him to pursue his journey to England. The commander refrained from noticing him as a single word in favor of restoration of the children of Shiel would have been a virtual confession of the failure on his own policy at the very outset. Shiel proceeded as far as the Cape, but his resources being there expended, he was obliged to return to his own country, 1,000 miles distant, without accomplishing the object of his journey. On his return, he adopted a mode of punishment which he had seen in the colony, namely making criminals work on the public roads, and he has since, I am informed, made himself the missionary to his own people. He's tall, rather corpulent, and has more of the Negro feature than common, but has large eyes. He is a very dark, and his people swear by Black Shiel. He has great intelligence, reads well, and is a fluent speaker. Great numbers of the tribes formerly living under the Boers have taken refuge under his sway, and he is now greater in power than he was before the attack on Kohlenberg. And here we bid farewell to the Black Shiel, trusting that his wise government, insipid statesmanship among the tribal Africans may have full development worthy of its interesting and auspicious beginning. The foregoing sketch of the life and character of the singular man has been given because believed to be interesting in itself, and because one may hence get a glimpse, at any rate, of the people among whom Livingston lived and labored for so many years. The calamity which befell Shiel did not occur, or, of course, until after the traveler had been long in Africa. Meantime, he had acquired the language of the Backwaynes and married a daughter of the missionary Mr. Moffat, and had become the father of several children. After several journeys in exploration of the country, Dr. Livingston finally determined to select the beautiful valley of Mbatza as the site of a missionary station, and thither he removed in 1843. He purchased of land for the purposes he had in view was the first instance of a sale, with regular transfer of title, which had occurred in that country. The price paid for a large lot was £5 sterling, and it was stipulated that a similar price of land should be allotted to any other missionary at any other place to which the tribe might remove. It was needless to enter into the details of Dr. Livingston's missionary life among the Backwaynes. His relations with the people, he tells us, were simply relations between strangers. His influence depended entirely upon persuasion. He disclaimed having either authority or power, and it may be safely concluded from the beneficent result of the case of Shiel and the improved stage of civilization and prosperity to which he brought his tribe, that his course of kindness and affection was also the course of wisdom. Not only this, but the influence of the missionaries was good in bringing new motives into play among the ignorant peoples. There were no less than 5 instances during Dr. Livingston's sojourn at Kohlenberg of the prevention of war through influences which may be claimed as wholly Christian. The people in general, he said, were slow in coming to a decision on religious subjects, but in questions affecting their worldly affairs, they were keenly alive to their own interests. They might be called stupid in matters which had not come within the sphere of their own observation, but in other things, he proceeds to say, they showed more intelligence than is to be met within our own uneducated peasantry. They are remarkably accurate in their knowledge of cattle, sheep, goats, knowing exactly what kind of pasturage suited for each, and they selected with great judgment the variety of soil best suited for different kinds of grain, and they are also familiar with the habitats of the wild animals, and in general are well up in the maxims which embody their ideas of political wisdom. A little further on, Dr. Livingston gives a lively account of what may be called his private life. Our house at the river Kohlenberg, which gave a name to the settlement, which was the third which I had reared with my own hands. A native smith taught me to weld iron, and having improved some from scraps of information in the line from Mr. Moffat, and also in carpentering and gardening, I was becoming handy at almost every trade, besides doctoring and preaching. And as my wife could make candles, soap, and clothes, we came nearly up to what we may be considered as indispensable in the accomplishments of a missionary family in Central Africa, namely the husband to be a jack of all trades without doors, and the wife a maid of all work within. It is not to be supposed that missionary life in the country infested by large numbers of beasts of prey would at all times pass smoothly on. Indeed, it was not long after Dr. Livingston had taken up his abode at Kohlenberg that he took part in a lion hunt, in which he personally had an encounter with one of the beasts, the result of which was a wound which permanently disabled his left arm. His graphic account of this affair presents a vivid picture of one phase of African life, and relates, besides certain habits and characteristics of the lion, which will be found interesting in all students of natural history, Wherefore, the narrative bearing upon the innocent is given in full here. Here an account took place concerning which I have frequently been questioned in England, and which, but for the opportunities of friends, I meant to have kept in store to tell my children when in my dotage. The Bakalata of the village Mobatsa were much troubled by lions, which leaped into the cattle pens by night and destroyed their cows. They even attacked the herds in open day. This was so unusual an occurrence that the people believed that they were bewitched, given, as they said, into the power of the lions by a neighboring tribe. They went into to attack the animals, but being rather a cowardly people compared to Bacchanans, in general, on such occasions they returned without killing any. It is well known that if one of a troop of lions is killed, the others take the hint and leave that part of the country. So the next time the herds were attacked, I went with the people in order to encourage them to rid themselves of the annoyance of destroying one of the marauders. We found the lions on a small hill about a quarter of a mile in length and covered with trees. A circle of men was formed round about it, and they gradually closed up, ascending pretty near to each other. Being down below on the plain with a native schoolmaster named Melabe, a most excellent man, I saw one of the lions sitting on a piece of rock within the closed circle of men. Melabe fired at him before I could, and the ball struck the rock on which the animal was sitting. He bit at the spot struck, as a dog does at a stick or a stone thrown at him. Then, leaping away, broke through the open circle and escaped unhurt. The men were afraid to attack him, perhaps on account of their belief in witchcraft. When the circle was reformed, we saw 2 other lions in it, but we were afraid to fire, lest we should strike the men, and they allowed the beasts to burst through also. If the Bakalta had acted according to the custom of the country, they would have speared the lion in their attempt to get out. Seeing we could not get them to kill one of the lions, we bent our 4 steps towards the village. In going round the end of the hill, however, I saw one of the beasts sitting on a piece of rock, and as before, but this time he had a little bush in front. Being about 30 yards off, I took good aim at his body through the bush and fired both barrels into it. The men then called out, "He is shot, he is shot." Others cried, "He has been shot by another man too. Let us go to him." I did not see anyone else shoot at him, but I saw the lion's tail erected in anger behind the bush, and turning to the people, said, "Stop a little, till I load again." When in the act of ramming down the bullets, I heard a shout. Starting and looking half around, I saw the lion just in the act of springing upon me. I was upon a little height. He caught my shoulder as he sprang, and we both came to the ground below together. Growling horribly close to my ear, he shook me as a terrier dog does to a rat, and shock produced a similar to that which seems to be felt by a mouse after the first shake of a cat. It caused a sort of dreaminess, in which there was no sense of pain or feeling of terror, though quite conscious of all that was happening. It was like what patients partially under the influence of chloroform describe, who see all the operation but feel not the knife. This singular condition was not the result of any mental process. The shake annihilated fear and allowed no sense of horror in looking around at the beast. This peculiar state is probably produced in all animals killed by the carnivoria, and if so, is a merciful provision by the benevolent Creator for lessening the pain of death. Turning round to relieve myself of the weight, as he had one paw on the back of my head, I saw his eyes directed at Mwabe, who was trying to shoot him at a distance of 10 or 15 yards. His gun, a flint one, missed fire in both barrels. The lion immediately left me, attacking Mwabe, bit his thigh. Another man whose life I saved before, after he had been tossed by a buffalo, attempted to spear the lion while it was biting Mwabe. He left Mwabe and caught this man by the shoulder, but at the moment the bullet took effect, he fell down dead. The whole was a work of a few moments, and must have been his paroxysmus of dying rage. In order to take out the charm from him, the Balataka on the following day made a huge bonfire over the carcass, which was declared to be that of the largest lion they had ever seen. Besides crunching the bone into splinters, he left 11 teeth wounds on the upper part of my arm. A wound from this animal's tooth resembles a gunshot wound. It is generally followed by a great deal of slowing and discharge. The pains are felt in the part periodically ever afterwards. I had on a target jacket on the occasion. I had on a tartan jacket on the occasion, and I believe that it wiped off all the virus from the teeth that pierced the flesh. For my two companions in this affray have both suffered from the peculiar pains, while I have escaped with only the inconvenience of a false joint in my limb. The man whose shoulder was wounded showed me his wound actually burst forth afresh on the same month of the following year. This curious point deserves the attention of inquirers. It is very evident that Dr. Livingston does not hold the lion, famed as the king of the beasts, in high respect. He might almost appear to hold him in a certain contempt, notwithstanding the fact that he will carry to his grave the inconvenient evidence of the maned brute's power. The traveler gives a full account of these animals in the 7th chapter of his Researches in South Africa. He says, when a lion becomes too old and to catch game, he frequently takes on to killing goats in the villages. A woman or child happening to go out at night falls to prey too, and as this is his only source of substance now, he continues it. From this circumstance has arisen the idea that the lion, when he has once tasted human flesh, loves it better than any other. A is invariably an old lion. A meat eater is invariably an old lion, and when he has overcome his fear of man so far as to come to the village for goats and people, remark, his teeth are worn, and soon he will kill men. They at once acknowledge the necessity of instant action and turn out to kill him. When living far away from population, or when, as is the case in some parts, he entertains a wholesome dread of the bushman and bakalakari, as soon as either disease or old age overtakes him, he begins to catch mice and other small rodents, and even to eat grass. The natives, observing undigested vegetable matter in his droppings, follow up his trail in the certainty of finding him scarcely able to move under some tree and dispatch him without difficulty. The grass may have been eaten as medicine, as is observed in dogs. That the fear of man often remains excessively strong in the carnivoria is proved from well-authenticated cases in which the lioness, in the vicinity of towns where the large game had been expectedly driven away by firearms has been known to assuage the paroxysms of hunger by devouring her own young. It must be added that though the effluvium which is left by the four steps of man is in general sufficient to induce lions to avoid a village, there are exceptions. So many came about our deserted houses at Chalatain while we were in the act of removing to Kohlenberg, that the natives who remained with Mrs. Livingston were terrified to stir out of doors in the evening.